Far from the busy city's hum, where men from dawn of day to the sun sinking toil and swell the crowds that labor to despoil and prate and traffic, from the scratching pen and jars and worries to fair Wellesley come, where airs are sweet and birds are never dumb but sing the winter long, where soft mist rest on fringing hills but shun the valley's breast, and list the lesson whispered from the trees, told by the leaves that in the soft winds move, that life is not at all harsh, that peace and ease are given to those who nature truly love.
These were the words used by a group of investors to describe this backdrop of natural beauty. They came together to create a unique and progressive residential option to city living, and they named it Wellesley Park. The Wellesley Land and Improvement Company was created in 1888 to purchase and develop 160 acres of undeveloped land within a portion of the Rancho de las Pulgas in the township of Redwood City. The land was purchased from William J. Gunn for $84,000 in gold coin. It was nestled between the estates of Nathaniel J. Britton to the north and Moses Hopkins to the south. At the time, this area was still covered with ancient oaks, wild grasses, and had a creek named the Cordilleras running down from the hills. The goal was to make it a haven for prominent men and their families by creating a planned community in the country. The location was ideal as train service arrived in Redwood City in 1863, allowing people to commute. Access to a reliable and faster mode of transportation was a key selling point for this project, as carriages and horseback were still the primary methods of travel. Shareholders included John S. Morgan, president of the Morgan Oyster Company, George C. Shreve, the prominent jeweler, and George W. Percy, the San Francisco architect who helped design the Stanford Art Museum and Greystone Cellars in St. Helena. Most of the investors belonged to the private and notorious Bohemian Club. The president of the Wellesley Land and Improvement Company was Robert Bunker, shown here sitting between his butchers. He made his fortune selling sugar-cured hams and pork products throughout California. Business was booming in post-Civil War San Francisco, with hundreds of companies opening up shop. This environment helped to make investing in new schemes a tempting proposition. The vice president was Henry L. Davis, president of the California Optical Company. Davis was not afraid of a challenging venture, as he had taken on the role of sheriff in post-Gold Rush San Francisco, and he did it twice. He was also one of only 3 investors willing to fund what would become the San Francisco cable car line. The land agent was Bovey Toy and Company. William H. Bovey had come to California in 1849, caught up in the dream of finding gold. He failed at mining and earned some success operating a general store in Sacramento. In 1850, he moved to San Francisco and decided to set up a coffee and spice business. He named it the Pioneer Steam Coffee and Spice Mills Company and hired a 14-year-old carpenter named James A. Folger to help him build 2 warehouses where he could roast, grind, and package the coffee. James then became his salesman. Folger soon became a partner, and by 1865 he bought out Bovey and Ira Martin, which led to the start of the Folgers Coffee Company. Bovey went on to become mayor of Oakland from 1863 to 1864, and then moved on to working in real estate. He did well enough to expand the business with his son-in-law, George D. Toy, in 1885. Toy was also a shareholder in the Wellesley Park venture and would later become president of the Wellesley Land and Development Company. One key supporter of the project was Nathaniel J. Britton. Britton's father, John Britton, had purchased 3,000 acres of the Rancho de las Pulgas tract in what is present-day San Carlos and named it Britton Ranch. When his father died, Nathaniel inherited 1,000 acres. He invested in commercial real estate in San Mateo, San Francisco, and present-day Emeryville. Britton was also a member of the Bohemian Club. He so enjoyed their gatherings that he had a clubhouse built next to his San Carlos mansion in order not to disturb his wife. It was called the Britton Party House and was used as a hunting lodge, a meeting hall, and it even had a bear pit. It still exists, though now it is a private residence. Daniel OConnell was a journalist, a writer of poetry, prose, and plays. He had come to the United States from Ireland and arrived in San Francisco in 1868, quickly picking up work writing for multiple daily newspapers. He connected with other journalists to enjoy intellectual debates, and in 1872 he was one of the founding members of the Bohemian Club. The club offered a way to support their literary pursuits and enjoyment of the arts. As its popularity grew, they opened up its membership to men with no artistic talents, but with great financial resources. The club's motto of "Weaving spiders come not here" appealed to the members' desire to have boisterous fun without the risk of public shaming. OConnell was very charismatic. He was also forever in debt due to his bohemian lifestyle. Yet it was his personality, not the size of his bank account, that endeared him to his Bohemian Club brothers. He was asked to create a promotional brochure that would outline the park benefits and show the boundaries of the property. The 1-mile-long park showed 153 parcels and was bordered by San Jose Road, Britton Road, Cordilleras Creek, and Ashley Avenue. Ashley was the maiden name of O'Connell's wife. 2 side roads flanked the main entrance, Avondale and Claremont Avenues. Each entrance had a set of columns with iron gates. On September 9, 1888, a groundbreaking ceremony was held. O'Connell used his great skills as a public speaker to tell anyone who would listen how he had designed the park and was the person sponsoring its construction. Since O'Connell was better at telling stories than he was at making money, it's safe to say that while he was an eloquent promotional manager, he had no resources to invest in such a grand enterprise. The entrance to the park was comprised of a 96-foot wide wall made of massive granite and basalt blocks sourced from Britton's quarry. On top of a central arched iron gate stood a full-sized, 12-pointed stag 32 feet from the ground. The Times-Gazette called it the most pretentious entrance on the coast. What influenced this design? Clearly a desire to duplicate the grandeur and serene setting of English estates and royal gardens. The stag design was a common theme in England, as seen here in the photo of the Stag Gate at Charborough Park in Dorset. San Francisco architect John Gash was asked to duplicate this imagery. It was further popularized by the English painter Edwin Landseer, who captured the majesty of nature in his 1851 painting Monarch of the Glen. Its appeal was brought back to the United States, and copies were showcased in homes and businesses alike. The Challenge Cream and Butter Company made it part of its logo, as did the insurance company, the Hartford. The backdrop to this majestic entrance was the beauty of the landscaping. While little is known about the landscaper, he is believed to be William Brown, a gardener from Scotland. Times-Gazette commentary referred to it as the most ambitious piece of landscaping gardening yet attempted by our real estate men. April 1889. The Berkeley property tract was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted in 1865, using many new techniques that were inspired from his travels throughout the English countryside in 1850. Upon seeing the benefits of greenscape and landscape sidewalks in urban settings, he decided to introduce these techniques to his projects. This approach was a progressive idea at the time and one that Wellesley Park would adopt. The entrance and main boulevards were wide and curved around a public recreation ground. At the front of this lawn, 2 life-size statues of Abyssinian lions were installed on basalt plinths. The lions were designed by a Belgian sculptor named Guillaume Giefs and matched a pair of lions that flanked the main entrance to the San Francisco property of Adolphe Sutro. By 1890, the entrance was completed, trees and plants were installed, a gatehouse had been built, and 153 parcels had been plated. 2 major streets were created to run the length of the park. The main entrance was called Wellesley Avenue, which led to the roundabout that bordered the public ground. This was called Wellesley Crescent. Despite all the promotional efforts made by Daniel O'Connell and the appeal created by the grand entrance, the park became more popular with locals than it did with buyers. Sales failed to meet expectations, and by May of 1890, the company was forced to sell the lots at a reduced price, but even that still left a third unsold. Between March of 1893 and July of 1903, the company had no further sales. The country was experiencing a major economic downturn triggered by the collapse of the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad in February 1893. A run on banks caused hundreds of them to close, and when companies could no longer get credit, thousands of workers became unemployed. On December 16, 1905, the Wellesley Land and Improvement Company decided to sell the remaining land to the Redwood Realty Company. It was headed by George C. Ross, a local attorney who had gone into the real estate business. On February 28, 1906, Ross and Mina Finger signed a deed of easement giving the right-of-way to the existing roads within Wellesley Park to Redwood City. Ross hired Charles G. Lambert, a land agent, to help reconfigure the existing undeveloped parcels and original roads. He added new side streets and named them after English towns. The new layout created Subdivision A, Wellesley Park, and was filed on March 24, 1906. Henry Martins had this house built in 1909 after seeing the design of a similar house on Stambaugh Street. Martins had immigrated from Germany and was the owner of the Enterprise Foundry in San Francisco. He made his fortune producing brake shoes for trains. He hired architect Carl Koenig to build a house large enough for his family and that would be the last to tumble should there be another earthquake. It was designed in the Queen Anne style with a wide porch with balusters, a 2-story turret, and surface ornamentation. This house was built for John Alexander Britton in 1912. He was vice president and general manager of Pacific Gas and Electric from 1907 until his death in 1923. Britton hired San Francisco architect Frederick Meyer to build a grand bungalow. It reflects the principles of the arts and crafts movement by using natural materials and a simple design to harmonize with its surroundings. The house has a low extended gable with casement windows above a long wide porch. French doors and multiple bands of windows let in the light. Roy Walter Cloud had this 2-story colonial revival house built in 1926. It has a hipped roof, dentils under the eaves, and Doric columns in the entrance. Cloud graduated from Stanford University in 1905 and accepted the role of school principal for Bodie, California. After 10 months, he returned to Redwood City and politely declined a return engagement. He later shared that he found Bodie to be one of the coldest, most remote places he had ever known. He went on to be San Mateo County's superintendent of schools for almost 2 decades. The enthusiasm of the Roaring Twenties brought new clients and new architectural designs to Redwood City, including this Tudor revival style. The exterior is made of stucco that wraps around the half timbers above the front door and dormer. The roof lines are tall with a steep slope, and it has clipped gables with rounded eaves to resemble an English cottage with a thatched roof. This style continued into the 1930s. Although the Stag Gate is gone and several homes have been replaced by structures with less distinctive architecture, Wellesley Park retains much of the appeal envisioned by the dreamers who created it. The streets remain wide and curving, mature trees shade pedestrians, and much of the architecture that gives it a unique character remains. In a small way, it is comforting to know that the lions still stand guard over Wellesley Park. Thank you for joining us to learn about this unique neighborhood. I am Linda Marie Rodriguez Roche, Chair of the Historic Resources Advisory Committee and primary researcher for this tour.
I am Craig Roche, producer for this video.